Hello, everybody. Welcome to Attracting Your Life. I'm your host, Maija, and we're coming to you live from BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. I hope you guys had a great week. I know I did. The weather is phenomenal. I'm really loving this warm weather over here in Chicago. I know last week we had an interesting show, and if you did miss it, you can always tune into Apple iHeart and find me on on Apple iTunes. I just kind of mix those things together, and or iHeartRadio. You can find the podcasts from the previous shows on iHeartRadio or Apple iTunes. And I had a lot of interesting questions after my show with Dr. Paul, and I did forward them all on to Dr. Paul. And like we said last week, he has joined the BBM Global Network family, so it's great that I was able to kind of introduce him to everyone here. So this week, we're going to be talking about the beautiful modality called Reiki. It's true, Reiki is healing. It gives you what you need to heal your life on every level. Reiki is intelligent. It knows best what's helpful for you for the greater good, and it goes ahead and gives it to you. No questions asked. No permission is needed because Reiki is love, unconditional, uncompromising, full of reward. Reiki's love is wholeness, and wholeness is balance. Balance is well-being, and well-being is freedom. Freedom from dis-ease and stress. Detach yourself from any outcome that you may think that you may receive or not receive, and open yourself up to the healing energy of Reiki. On that note, I would like to introduce you to my Reiki teacher, Nicole. Nicole is an experienced healer and spiritual teacher. She is a teacher of shamanism, a Reiki master, and a leader of sacred ceremonies all across the country. She's also a singer of traditional Latoka medicine and ceremonial song. Nicole is a healer with a heart. She has a great love for compassion and empathy for her clients and her students. She strives only to be of service for others and remains grounded and guided by the force of divine love in all that she does. Nicole realized a combination of different healing modalities may be best for her clients to address their physical, emotional, mental, spiritual imbalances. She believes in teaching people how to bring healing to their own lives in each and every day and empowering them with the tools to help them create a life they love to live. Nicole, thank you so much for coming on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Liza. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Thank you.
That's good. I'm so glad that you're here. I know you just came back from a ceremony last week, right? You were
Yes,
teaching?
I was blessed to have the opportunity to be at a Lakota Sundance ceremony, so I'm just coming back from that.
Great. How was it?
It was life-changing and amazing and incredible in so many wonderful ways. And it was also good to spend so much time connected to nature and the land and the earth and the ancestors of the land. And so it was a really, really blessed and beautiful experience.
That's great. Well, once again, thank you so much for joining us on the show. And so we're going to just kind of dive right into it. So I would like to talk about Reiki today. So could you tell the listeners what is your definition or what is Reiki?
Sure. So there are a lot of different ways that we could talk about what Reiki is. And, you know, in a traditional definition that I could give you, Reiki is a form of energy healing. The system of the energy healing was developed in Japan, and it utilizes what's called universal life force energy. And so I think looking at the word Reiki in Japanese, if we break that down in the Japanese characters that make up the word Reiki, the word Rei means spiritual consciousness or divine consciousness, and Ki means life force energy. So at a very basic definition, Reiki can be defined as divinely guided or spiritually guided life force energy. Within that, so even in that, what does that mean, right? So
right.
For me, Reiki comes from, Reiki itself, for me, actually, the energy of Reiki isn't Japanese. The healing practice and the modality and the system that was developed around it does come from Japan, but the energy itself is really energy that comes from whatever divine source people believe in. So whether that's God or the Creator or Tunkashila or the universe or any really divine, the place of light, any divine higher power that people believe in is where that energy comes from, also from source. So for me, at the heart of what Reiki is really the healing power of the unconditional love of God or of Creator, of Source. That for me is my working definition in my life for what that healing energy is. For me, love and divine love, unconditional love, really are the greatest healing forces that exist. And in our modern day world, we create a lot of modalities around accessing that in different ways that are important. But at the core of that, again, coming back to that, it is just facilitating in the purest sense unconditional divine love. And so Reiki is helpful for so many things. It restores balance to a person's body, but also their mind and emotions, and can have so much healing on those things as well as on a lot of physical symptoms and pain as well. Reiki does not cause harm and cannot actually cause harm in any way. And so it's one of the only energy healing modalities, or healing modalities in general, that I'm aware of that don't have any contraindications and that works as great what's called complementary care with any other healing practice or modality, as well as Western medicine too. I have the privilege 2 days a week of facilitating Reiki at a cancer center, and I work with cancer patients. And the healing that people receive from Reiki in that context, I mean, there are so many patients that have said that Reiki helps them manage their side effects of chemotherapy better than anything else, that it helps with the nausea and the neuropathy and a lot of the things that come along with Western treatment of cancer. So there are those aspects, also like lowering blood pressure, helping with pain, again, all those things in general.
And emotional balance. Too, I mean, that's really powerful.
I think, yeah. Sorry, I didn't hear exactly what you said. I did a little bit.
So it's really important to understand that, Reiki is something that is from the divine. And we're going to talk more about that. Right now, we're going to go on a commercial break. You're listening to Attracting Your Life. I'm your host, Maija, and stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. This is Attracting Your Life, and I'm your host, Maija. And once again, we're coming to you live from BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. And before the break, we were just giving a great definition to Reiki, and Nicole was really giving some great insight to it, and I really appreciate that. But I guess my question is Reiki a religion?
Sure, that's a great question, and also a really common question, too. So Reiki is in no way a religion, and nor is it connected with any religious dogma or texts or schools in any capacity. Reiki is a spiritual practice, and also for people who practice and teach Reiki, it's also a spiritual way of life. So coming back to what we were talking about before the break around that the heart of Reiki is facilitating the love of God for healing for people. And so that is beyond, above and beyond any religion for me. The love of God spans and touches all religions, really. And so we're not looking at any one specific religious dogma. Just because, again, the practice comes from Japan doesn't mean that the energy is at all connected in that way with any even religions in Japan. So it's a spiritual practice, a spiritual way of life. For people who receive Reiki and give Reiki, it's a practice that the energy really puts them in very close relation and close connection with whatever their understanding of the divine is. So for people who are religious and practice Reiki, they do feel that it connects them closer to God. For people who are spiritual and practice Reiki or receive Reiki, they feel that it deepens their spiritual connection. So no, it's not in any way a religion. There are sometimes misconceptions about that, so I think it is an important question, and clarifying that it is just a spiritual practice.
And I think you answered it very well. And I do know that I have several. This is a question that comes up quite often with some of my clients, or people have posed that question to me on Facebook or inbox me. And one thing that I found interesting is how Christians sometimes question it because it's a healing touch. Well, where is the healing touch coming from? Where is this? And I always offer specific scriptures to kind of show them how, similar to Jesus's practice of healing, it's the same thing that Reiki is. And that's what I love about Reiki. Reiki just kind of, wherever you are, whatever level you're at, it just expands and makes that connection even deeper. And, Jesus laid hands to help people all the time. You can find scriptures in, I think, Luke chapter 9. He talks about how he passed the information to his disciples, which is similar as Reiki attunement. It was a passing of this energy so that his apostles were able to do the same healing as he was doing. And he did that through his hands. And then in Mark chapter 6, verse 9, where it talks about faith, that faith is not required for the healing to go to the person who's receiving Reiki. And in this scripture, it talks about how Jesus was unable to do any miracles in this particular city because they lacked faith. All he was able to do is lay hands on people and heal them. So that, to me, that is remarkable how, and this is something you taught when you told me when you taught me about Reiki, is that the permission is not needed for Reiki. I could send Reiki's energy to someone across the country without them knowing, because it's all based on love. And that's the beautiful thing about Reiki. It's all based on divine love. So that healing, that connection to God's source energy, or whatever you want to call that higher power, it's all based on love with Reiki. So, yeah, that was really good. I just want to add that because I know I have certain listeners who may want to. And
I think Reiki can be similar to sending prayer, right? It's the same thing, sending love or sending that good intention. And, with Reiki, too, wanting to clarify, because I think it is important and in line with what you're saying, right? The healing of hands goes back, farther back than any of us could possibly imagine, tens of thousands of years, right? And so that is an ancient healing practice, in and of itself, right? So with Reiki, there's no agenda. The practitioner does not have an agenda. The agenda is the will of God and is the will of the person. So what is required for a person to receive healing is they have to want it, right? So permission isn't needed to send it, but for the person to receive it, just like that saying, God helps those who help themselves, right? We have to be willing to ask for help, and we have to want to receive help. We have to want to change the circumstance in our life. If we don't, Reiki respects free will because God respects free will, right? And so if the free will of a person is, I don't want this healed or I don't want this changed, then it will not happen. Not because it can't, but because the will of that person is such, right? So the will to receive the healing is a necessary component of that, for sure.
Right. And I'm glad you made that clarification that will is needed. But what I was saying with this scripture, it's faith is not needed. You don't need to understand all the symbols and the in and out and have faith in the healer, in the Reiki healer, or have faith in the symbols or the actual practice. All you have to be is open and willing to receive. You have it. Yeah, that is really true.
Right.
One thing I kind of want to talk about, and you kind of brushed upon it when you were giving out your definition of Reiki, is this universal life force energy. And the question I really want to just pose is, what is this life force energy to the human energy system?
Sure. So are you asking about, so the role, when we talk about what universal life force energy is, that's essentially the life force that runs through everything that's alive. So everything that is alive has this universal life force energy, and that is our connection to source. If we're talking about the human energy system, which in some spiritual language can be called the aura or just the energy body, that is our spirit. That's who we are. That is, the body isn't who we are. The spirit, the energy is who we are. The spirit of who we are, this human energy system, is much bigger than the physical body. And so all of that is connected. When we're talking about what is health, what is optimal health, everything is connected. So our state of emotional health, our state of mental health, our state of spiritual health, all of that is directly connected to our state of physical health, right? And so all of those energetic things, again, talking about emotional, mental, spiritual, those are all energy body things. Those are just kind of different languages people use for them. But the state of our energy affects the state of our physical health.
I get that, and I really want you to kind of break it down a little bit more further when we come back from commercial break. So you're listening to Attracting Your Life. I'm your host, Maija, and stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. This is Attracting Your Life, and I'm your host, Maija. And once again, we're coming to you live from BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. And before the break, we were talking specifically about the life force and the human energy, the auras, and how that works, and how we're just not physical elements such as muscle, bones, and nerves. There is a subtle energy system which flows, and this is the life force energy, that universal life force energy that flows through us. And this energy is composed of energy from the divine. And so that's what we were talking about right before we came on break. You touched about auras and the chakras, and all of this is something that is part of the divine, and it's embodied in us, and we have it all connected to everything that is living in this world. So I'm going to let you continue to answer that question. I know that there's many parts to it, so tell me some more.
Yeah, I just think it's an important thing for people to understand when we're talking about what energy healing is, that it's important to understand what our energy systems are and why. If our energy systems are out of balance, then our physical body also becomes out of balance, because those things, our physical body and our energy body, are connected. There's no disconnecting them. So it's common too, I've had questions from clients or different people. I don't believe in all of that. I don't really even believe in energy, or, so I think concrete examples are a helpful thing for people, right? So everyone can relate to some universal experiences that we all have as humans. So everyone has had the experience that they've had a really horrible argument with somebody, or said, things they've regretted, or heard really horrible things said to them, and you feel physically sick afterwards, right? You have a headache, you have a stomach ache, you feel nauseous. So that's just one of many possible examples of how the energy of something that just happened directly translates into a physical experience in your body, right? Nothing physical happened to your stomach or your head, right? But you could have a stomach ache or a headache or many other things, having gotten in a really horrible argument or confrontation with somebody, right? Yes. Stress is another energetic thing, right? Stress kills people. The stress of life, right, causes high blood pressure, causes ulcers, causes heart attacks, causes all these things. Stress is not physical in any way. That's an energetic condition as well.
But it causes physical conditions. So, like a person who doesn't handle stress properly can have anxiety, which causes dis-ease in the body, right? It's all about not handling the stress properly, I guess, or handling the discomfort or the fear, the worry or doubt, because that will be here, right? But it's about us handling the energy that comes with it. Isn't that, I mean, you're not going to be able to
Yeah,
put yourself in a bubble
absolutely.
and not have stress and not have,
Right. Sure.
but it's how we let the energy
Yeah,
flow from us, right?
correct. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's impossible to be in relation on this planet with other people without having stress and trauma in many different ways. That is a part of the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are not things that we can control or prevent. What we can control is our response to it, is the way that
Mm-hmm.
we deal with it, right? When something happens, do we address it? Do we help to move that out? Do we, heal it, express it, whatever, or do we just repress it and bury it? And, when we do those things and we don't address them, or we're not being proactive about being in balance in our life, life is stressful right now at a collective level for many reasons that we don't need to get into. But, the world is in a collective state of heightened stress right now. There's a lot of large-scale violence and natural disasters and things happening, right? So that is there. So what can we do to maintain balance, to maintain connection with our spiritual strength? And that is a very important part of the process, because if we don't try to stay in balance, in ourselves as life happens, many times that does cause dis-ease or, things to manifest or create in the physical body, again, because those things are very connected. Even watching the news, someone could feel noticeably not well after watching the news, right? So
that's why I try not to watch the news. I'll just get information,
right.
from bits
Agreed.
and
I don't
pieces.
advise
But
that also for anyone.
it's just,
Yeah. So
it's just too stressful,
those
and
are all, just
stress.
different examples, right? So it isn't necessarily the stress. It's the way, we're going to have stress, right?
Right.
It's the way,
Mm-hmm.
how are we taking care of ourselves in the context of the stress in our own lives, in the context of the stress at our collective level. That's what's important for our well-being.
I agree with you in so many different levels. And something that Dr. Paul said last week is that stress is, he agreed that stress is something that is here, but we have to accept the stress in. And once you accept the stress in, it gets involved in your thoughts and your feelings, and it's lodged into your energy system. And that's what we're talking about, is how with us making the decision of ensuring that we are not going to let it affect our energy system. Because once it affects our energy system, that's when the life force energy that's within us gets blocked. And once it's blocked, then dis-ease comes in, right? And that's what I love about the beauty about Reiki, because it gives us that opportunity to help dislodge that stress that's locked into a subtle place in our energy system. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's correct. One of my favorite sayings is the issues are in the tissues. We hold the body is a warehouse, really, for the experience of all of our energies and experiences of the things of our life. We carry our trauma and we carry our, if we want to call them negative experiences, we carry them physically at a cellular level that can, imprint, it's called, right? Which just means that it's an energy that really affects us, that gets stuck. We think about PTSD as a perfect example of the way that trauma imprints on a person for a very long time. So we take into our physical body and hold in our physical body many of the things that we experience, right? So sometimes, developing pain or having chronic pain in an area that has no injury or no kind of known origin, there can just be a bunch of emotional stuff in that place. And that's why you're actually in physical pain. It's because the energy of that is being held there for you because you haven't worked through it yet, right? I mean, I've seen it in a lot of clients that I work with that in an area of pain, we start to do, healing in that area, and they start crying or they start talking about that they're seeing, all these memories coming up. And just as we're holding this one place, right, and that's because the energy of all those things is in that place. And so,
That's
yes,
a beautiful
that is
thing.
one way that this can be helpful, is that it helps to release and move that out of the body.
Let's talk about that more when we come back from commercial break. You're listening to Attracting Your Life. I'm your host, Maija, and we're coming to you live from BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. Stay tuned. Hello, I'm your host, Maija, and you're listening to Attracting Your Life. And we're coming to you live from BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. And before the break, we were talking to Nicole about just life force energy. And you kind of touched about what happens in some of your sessions with your clients. So tell me, what can a person expect in a Reiki session?
Sure. So in a logistical, practical way, when someone goes to receive a Reiki treatment, typically they're laying on a massage table. It can also be done in a chair. A person is fully clothed, and the practitioner either lays hands directly on the body, or some people work a couple of inches over the body and don't directly touch people. So that is, in a kind of practical way, what a person can expect. When a client asks me, how will I feel during the session or after the session, my honest answer to them is it depends on what you need. So as a practitioner, I am in no way directing the healing that's going to happen for a person. We talked about at the beginning that Reiki, because it comes from God, is driven by divine intelligence and the divine intelligence of divine love. And so a person will receive whatever it is that they need to come back into balance. And each person's balancing factor is really very different. So I've seen and observed Reiki have really opposite effects on people depending on what they need. So if I work with someone comes in to see me who's really super type A, works 80 hours a week, is, have a lot of control, their shoulders are up to their ears, right? I've experienced that type of presentation. Those people often are sleeping pretty quickly in a session, and after the session, they feel pretty groggy and need to go take a nap, right? And why is that happening? Because the person is expending so much energy that what they need to come back into balance is they need to take it down. They need to rest. And so Reiki, driven by divine intelligence, to bring this person back into balance is going to make them tired to go to sleep because they need to rest. And so their imbalance is an excess of energy, we'll say it in that way. I've also worked with people really clinically depressed who they're imbalanced. We could call it like a deficiency of energy, right? They're really fatigued. They have a hard time getting up. They have a hard time functioning. You can see it in their posture. I found that those clients don't actually sleep during the session as often, and afterwards they're tremendously energized. So they're like, wow, I haven't had this much energy in a long time. I really feel super functional, right? Because, again, their factor to come back into balance is that they need more, right. And so that is the balance that it provides that person, and that is really opposite effects of healing. I've worked with a lot of people with extensive trauma history who maybe haven't gone for help in other areas yet. And so this might be the first healing that they're trying to do. And we do the Reiki, and for people who have a lot of repression and a lot of unhealed emotions around trauma in particular, whatever that trauma is, I find that those people cry a lot during session. There is a really strong emotional releasing component that happens because for that person, their imbalance is that they're holding so much trauma in their bodies, and they need to let it out. If they, letting it out is a way that they'll come back into balance. And so that is the beautiful thing that I admire and love about Reiki is I always say at the beginning when I'm going to start working that, I align my will with the will of God, and I just ask for the healing love and the will of God to come through me for this person. And so I don't know what's best for this person, but I trust that the Creator and that divine power does. And it always happens. The person receives whatever it is that they need. And so I try to explain it to people in that way that you'll receive what you need to receive from it.
That's a beautiful thing. I know that, and I like how you did the breakdown about how some practitioners, they may touch, but you're always fully clothed. I know for me, I usually touch the clients, wherever the Reiki power, where God source energy is telling me to lay my hands on them. And people always are commenting like, oh, how did you know I had knee problems? Well, it's not me. And I usually tell them not to tell me, let the energy, let the intuitive of God source energy to place my hand or place the symbols where they need to be placed. And another thing is the heat that comes from the hands. That's another thing that clients will comment on, and that's whether if I'm touching them or not. They feel the heat from the hands, and they feel warmth. Sometimes they'll ask me, oh, did you have a what is it called, like those heating pads with your hands? And I'm like, no. So that was another thing about the energy that comes through the body, from the practitioner's body onto the client who's having Reiki. That's another thing that occurs too.
That's correct. And people also can experience like sensations of energy moving through their body in ways that they can't really explain. Or some people can see colors or have different experiences like that. And all of those are great, And so, yes, people, have very different and unique experiences.
Yeah,
even the same person who comes to get Reiki all the time, will have a unique experience each time.
That is true. That's the beauty about Reiki. But it knows it's complete intelligence. It's God source intelligence, and
correct.
It's always different.
And adding to what you said about, having kind of God guide your hands to where healing is needed. God speaks to everyone. We just don't listen, right? So it's the role of the practitioner to align in a really strong way with that God source, and to ask for that guidance. Help me to be of service to this person in the best way that I can. I always ask, even when I'm talking to clients, I ask God to speak through me, and to guide my hands, and to, show me how I can best help and serve this person, right? When we ask for that, we receive that. Everyone has that. It's not like I have something special or you have something special that other people don't. We are all the children of God in that way, and we all have that capacity. And we just have to ask for it, and then we have to be still enough and open enough to receive it. And that's where, when we talk about intuition, right, which can be a loaded word for some people in really religious contexts, right? Intuition
is so true.
You're really close to God. That's what that means.
Let's pick that up when we come back from commercial. I really like that. I want to really talk more about that intuition and that we all are connected. You're listening to Attracting Your Life. I'm your host, Maisha, and stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. This is Attracting Your Life, and I'm your host, Maisha. And once again, we're coming to you live from BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. And if you missed the beginning part of the show, you can always download the podcast on iHeart or on Apple iTunes, which is the beautiful part about this. But before we went on break, we were talking about intuitive nature with Reiki and how everything is connected to God. And if you have any questions for Nicole about this, you can always call us on the radio. It's 866-451-1451. So, Nicole, when you talk about this connection, and we are using information from God source energy, it's nothing that it's a gift that you have or a gift that I have. We all can ask for that. For me, when I start with a client, I always ask, let it be all of you, God, none of me, because I really need to be connected and to be tuned into his energy, his information that is best for this client. But I do believe that we can all do it. I do agree with that. But it has to be on a normal practice and having that connection. So almost feeling comfortable to do that. And that was something that I really enjoyed about your class. You really made people feel comfortable that there is no right or wrong way to make that connection with God, source energy, all ways, as long as you just know that you need to connect to him. Yeah, so could you talk more about this intuitive part?
Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just saying, could you talk more about this intuitive part and how connected we practitioners are to get that healing energy to help the clients?
Sure. So I like the way that you explain that. For me, God has infinite faces and infinite expressions.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we talk about Reiki symbols or different religions or different spiritual practices and all these things, for me, that's God, 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 all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Every human being, right, looking in the eyes of any other human being, also God, right? These are the infinite expressions of God. And they're all beautiful and they're all divine, right? And so we all, every one of us, every living thing, every plant, etc., right? We all have this connection to God. How do plants know to grow to the light, right? All these things, we all have this intuitive connection. So God, we all have this capacity for intuition. And when we talk about intuition, what that means to me means communication with God. So why we all have that capacity is because God lives equally in each of us. I don't have more of a piece of God than you do, etc. We all have that same piece, that same connection. Where we differ is in our connection to it, not God's connection to us, but our connection to God, if that makes sense. So
that makes perfect sense.
The more that we do our part in that connection, right? God is always there. God never abandons anyone. God is always there, right? That isn't the issue. The issue is us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Am I taking time to pray? Am I taking time to talk? Am I taking time to ask God to direct the things of my life? Or am I trying to control the things of my life, right? So it's our connection. So the more that we do that connection, the more we ask for that help and guidance and assistance, and we ask God to help us, to tell us, to talk to us. That's what intuition means, right?
Correct.
But the stronger that connection is, the stronger you're going to be able to hear, right? The stronger that you'll be able to receive that. Because, I think about God like the best friendship I'll ever have in my life, right? And with any friendship I have to call my friend. I have to talk to my friend. I have to put the effort in,
right.
Because it's a two-way street, right? So it's not that God is conditional. It's just that for there to be communication, I have to show up, right? I have to make that time. So, everyone is intuitive. We're born intuitive. We all are intuitive. It is just the degree to which we want that, we choose to connect with that, we nurture that. That's all,
And it's
so
an example that I usually tell my clients is it's a muscle. All of us have the same amount of muscle and same much. It's just that some people, they work out more and they intense, they pray more, like you're saying, and they build that muscle. And so the connection or the muscle seems bigger on somebody. It's not that because they have an extra layer of muscle, because we all have it. It's just how much you work it out. Are you using weights when you work out, or are you using 150-pound weights? It depends on how much you exercise that. And I think the way you explained it was beautiful. That was great. And I'm glad that we had that conversation, especially on the topic about Reiki, because so many people are so miscued that saying that this has nothing to do with God. And it's all about God with Reiki and a lot of modalities. It's just that you have to be open and have that connection. He's always there, ready to speak to us. It's, are you willing to listen, and are you willing to pick up the phone, because it's always ringing, right? He wants to talk to us at all time. That intuition is always going.
Very true.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's talk.
We can be uncomfortable with things that are outside of our religion or outside of we have to remember God has infinite expressions, right? And so we have to believe that, all these other religions, all these other spiritual practices, that is just as much God as it is our own practice. So where we can sometimes get stuck is if we are a little bit racist, or if we're a little bit, if we have skepticism around, practices from different cultures or different countries or any of those things, those things are just as much God as the things that are here, right? So it sometimes puts us out of our comfort zone in that way, but we have to, again, I come back to God is infinite in expression.
He is. And I'm so glad that you said that too. The whole reason for this platform, that's what I use this platform for, is to bring in different modalities, spiritual connections, so people can hear how connected we are all. I really believe that religions and spirituality is like a wheelbarrow with all these different spokes. So when you first start, you're at the furthest part of that spoke and you think your way is the only way. But as you study whatever practice, that Bible, the Torah, whatever, you start realizing that we're all connected to God and we're all one. And so you basically just reiterated what this platform is for, this radio attracting your life. I want people to realize how all these different modalities are all connected to God. So we're going to go to commercial break. You're listening to Attracting Your Life, and I'm your host, Maija. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. This is Attracting Your Life, and I'm your host, Maija, and we're coming to you live from BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio. And Nicole, this conversation was great, and I know that you offer so many different type of healing practices or healing modalities to your clients. So if people were interested in trying to know more about you or book a session with you, how would they get in contact with you?
Sure. You can visit my website, which is thunderhorsehealing.com. And on my website, I have my phone number and email address. And you can also, there's a contact form through the website. So in any of those three ways, people are welcome to reach out if they have questions or they'd like to schedule a session. There's also information on my website about all the different healing modalities that I practice too. So there's in-depth information about all of that as well.
So once again, that's Thunder, THUNDER, Horse, HORSE, Healing, HEALING.com. I hope you guys go to the website. It's a very beautiful website. It has beautiful horses running through, and you can learn more about the different services that Nicole offer, from Reiki to shaman healing to chakra balance, crystals, singing bowls, spiritual counseling, also tuning therapy. Am I missing anything, Nicole?
I think you covered a good amount of it, yeah.
And I know you have classes. Is there a particular class or ceremony that's coming up?
I will have coming up, well, I teach kind of ongoing Reiki classes and also do private Reiki training for people who prefer that as a fit. I have a shamanic healing class coming up in a couple of weeks that will look at compassionate and loving approaches to doing our own shadow work. And so shadow work is where we're kind of looking at these disowned aspects of ourselves, or what we sometimes call dark, energies in us, just those things that we don't like about ourselves, essentially, and working in a really loving and compassionate way to bring healing to our relationship with those aspects of ourselves to help us really be whole and present in our lives. So that class is the one that I have coming up soon.
And I think I did participate in a class like that. And I think that was it's always non-judgmental. That's one thing I want to emphasize. These classes that Nicole offer, it's a large group, but everyone is so loving and is so non-judgmental. That's what I want to say about your community. You have an awesome following of loving people, and they are so beautiful. I always enjoy coming to one of your sessions, and I really appreciate this time that you took out to come and talk to the listeners and kind of express more about what Reiki is and answer questions. And one thing that I want to do in closing is to share some Reiki principles that I live by, and I have to remind myself quite often about it. Just remember, just for today, don't worry. Just for today, don't anger. Just for today, be grateful for your blessings. Just for today, do your work honestly. Just for today, be kind to every living thing. Just for today, be compassionate and forgiving. Just for today, find joy in even the smallest thing in life. Just for today, feel peace and be peace. I think those are beautiful principles. I know that when I took your class, you introduced me to the first three, but then as I grow in Reiki and learn more, I added more principles to it. And it's just a beautiful tribute to understand that this is what Reiki's all about. And I just want to say thank you again, Nicole, and thank you to everyone who's listening. This is Maisha. You listen to Attracting Your Life, and I look forward to talking to you next week.